What's going on, everybody out there? This is Popular Stranger, and we are back at you again today with another Madden 25 Ultimate Team video. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the 95 overall champions and 96 overall LTDs from the Super Bowl promo and give you guys the best abilities and X factors to use on each player. We'll obviously point out the best ones to pick up and add to your squad as well, and it's going to be a lot to go over. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. I'm going to do the LTDs last. I want to talk about the champions first, and if you guys missed my big breakdown on the Super Bowl promo that I dropped earlier this afternoon, we are going to link it down below in the comment section as a pinned comment. Highly encourage you to go watch that video, because a lot of the things I'm going to reference in this video, if you don't know what's going on with this promo, you might feel a little bit lost. I'll try to reiterate a lot of different things, but definitely make sure you go watch that video. So when it comes to the 95 overall champions, and as you can see right now, for the most part, they're ranging around 7 to 800K. Most of the defensive backs and the defensive cards at the skill positions are going for about 800, some of the other cards down to 700K, and eventually they will start to come down in price, but now they're really high because they are the most overpowered cards in the game. And we're just going to work our way down the list here. We'll start with Nitschke, and I'm not really going to focus on the attributes because attribute wise they're all really good. We're really focusing on X factors and abilities. When it comes to the abilities on these cards, you can essentially power them up. If you played Madden Ultimate Team several years ago, you know about power-ups. It's not a thing anymore, but there is an upgrade path in each of these cards, and in order to boost up their attributes and add on a discounted ability bucket, you're going to need the 85 overall version of Nitschke, the 89, and then the 92, and it's going to be the same for every single player. You're just going to need that individual's 85, 89, and 92. Once you start to put those in the upgrade path, you can read in the upper right what exactly it's doing. So the 85 is going to give him +1 speed and 0 AP pick artist. If that's all you can afford to do, you know, that's fine. That's a really good ability to have on most cards that play defense. You don't really necessarily need it on a middle linebacker, but getting that +1 speed and pick artist for just the 85 overall into the path is obviously going to be the least expensive option out there. You're going to have to spend more coin to add the 89. The 89 gives you +1 to play rec and 2 AP run stuffer, and then finally adding the 92 for Nitschke specifically is going to give you +1 to zone and then 0 AP mid-zone KO. So I don't want to break down every single card just like that. I'm just using this one as an example. I want to focus on the abilities. Now, the most important thing to mention on the defensive backs, and you could count Nitschke out there as well, because he's going to be the best user in the game right now. They pretty much all either get, if they're a linebacker, lurk artist for 0 AP, and if they're a defensive back, they get pick artist for 0 AP in the tier 3 bucket. So you got to go backwards a little bit and down to the bottom, but you're going to see here on Nitschke, he gets lurk artist for 0 AP, so there's no need to use those two abilities, either pick artist or lurk artist, in the discounted buckets, because you can get them elsewhere for 0 AP. Now, when it comes to Nitschke, definitely have to put lurk artist on there because he's a linebacker. He's just not going to animate the same way that defensive backs do. If you put a strong safety or a free safety in at sub linebacker on your depth chart under the specialist screen, you don't need lurk artists on them. They're going to primarily kind of play like a linebacker on your field as far as their position goes, but they will animate because they're a defensive back. Linebackers will not do that, so you absolutely need lurk artists. Now, when it comes to the discounted bucket, mid-zone KO, one of the best abilities in the game. You're going to get knockouts in the middle, in between the hash marks from 10 to 20 yards. And, you know, that's where a lot of people throw primarily. So for Nitschke, you're going lurk artist for 0. You're going mid-zone KO for 0. And each of these cards also gets a pre-lit X factor. Now, you can only, if you got all of these cards on your team, you can only assign 3 X factors on offense and 3 on defense. If you have all these cards on your team, you probably already know what you're doing in this game mode there, but you're going to have to limit yourself to the 3 on offense and 3 on defense if you get a bunch of these cards. Nitschke's a little bit tough because you already got mid-zone KO and lurk artist. You don't really need anything else. These are the things that I would point out. If you like to blitz your middle linebacker, if you run the loop blitz, or you just like to blitz your middle linebacker in general, under pressure is not a bad one because it could end up making the quarterback, your opposing quarterback, make some really bad throws, inaccurate throws, and might lead to some turnovers there. So you have that as an option. Don't go tackle supreme because you also have enforcer supreme, and enforcer supreme is enforcer plus Tackle Supreme together. So you just want to go ahead and use this ability. And by the way, these X Factors, if you don't know what I mean by pre-lit, if you read the description, these X Factors are going to start the game on, right? You don't have to do anything to activate them, but I believe eventually they will go away for a little while and then they will come back on, and they kind of stay in that rotation throughout the whole game. So Under Pressure is good, Enforcer Supreme is good, but this one really intrigues me because I think it's new. It's called Mind Reader, and I've never used it, I haven't tested it, but it says that it shows the offensive play art via Coach Cam, which means to me that you can just hold down R2 on PlayStation, right trigger on Xbox, and when that is activated or lit up, and normally to light it up or to get it activated, you have to force a fumble. Because this is pre-lit and it's going to start on, you don't have to do that. Basically, it's like a version of Film Study, but just on this individual player. It does cost you 1 AP, so if you have the AP free, you're not spending it on mid-zone KO, you're not spending it on Lurk Artist. This one's really good, especially if you struggle to kind of figure out what your opponent is running. Adding this as a pre-lit almost feels like it's overpowered, so those would probably be my top 3 recommendations: Enforcer Supreme, Under Pressure, or Mind Reader. For Deion Sanders, he's going to be like a choose-your-own adventure when it comes to the abilities, and what I mean by that is if you go to his discounted bucket and you select Universal Coverage, it's going to cost you 3 AP, which is a lot, but Universal Coverage, I swear, and I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's like 10 abilities rolled in one. So you get Short Route KO, Mid Route KO, Deep Zone KO, Short Route KO, Mid Route KO, Deep Route KO, then you get Flat Zone KO, Mid Zone KO, Deep Out Zone KO, Deep In Zone KO. It's all of the knockouts in man or zone coverage. It also has a built-in 1 step ahead and Pick Artist, so it's pretty much got everything in there. It's worth the 3 AP. Now, if you don't want to spend the 3 AP on that one, remember what I said. Pick Artist is basically free on these cards, so don't use it in this bucket. You're going to go Deep Out Zone KO for 1 AP, which will give you those knockouts outside of the hash marks, 20 plus yards down the field, and then you would want to go ahead and go to that tier 3 bucket and take a look at Pick Artist, because you're going to get that for 0 AP. I definitely recommend going with Universal Coverage for the 3 AP. I think it's worth it, but if you do go the route where you go Pick Artist for 0 and you go Deep Out Zone KO for 0, you can somewhat substitute Universal Coverage by selecting it as an X Factor. Again, it's not going to stay on for the entire game, but it's going to be on for a good portion of the game, and when it's activated, you're going to get all of those things that I mentioned a moment ago. And the good part about this is that it is 0 AP. If you do spend the 3 AP on the Universal Coverage ability in that last bucket and then the 0 AP Pick Artist, after that, really the only one that makes sense that you should be using is either Secure Tackler to help against the run game, or you can go Bottleneck if you do like press man coverage a lot. As far as I know, Bottleneck is not rolled into Universal Coverage because they're both separate X Factor. So Deion Sanders, probably one of the best cards. Him and Ray Nitschke, to me, like the top 2 to top 3 cards that you have to choose from. John Lynch is another really good card. Again, attributes aside, because of these abilities now, this one, again, is kind of a choose your own adventure, because if you're going to play him at sub linebacker and user him, you might want to use different abilities as opposed to if he's going to be a high safety in coverage for you guys. Trying not to sound repetitive here, but when we look at his discounted buckets, very, very important, do not select Pick Artist for here from 0 AP, because if we go backwards to the tier 3 bucket, you're going to get Pick Artist within this bucket. So you got Pick Artist for 0 AP. I would recommend Mid Zone KO for 1 AP, regardless if he's going to be a high safety in coverage or in the middle as a user. You are going to have to spend the 1 AP there, and then Avalanche I would just probably not utilize, mostly because you can go over to the X Factors here and select Avalanche here for 0 AP. Again, it's not going to be on the entire game because it's an X Factor instead of an ability, but you're going to have it on for the majority of the game. So I would go Mid-Zone KO for 1 AP, regardless of where you're going to have him at. Pick Artist for 0 AP, regardless if you're going to have where you're going to have him at. And if he's going to be a sub linebacker, you can go Avalanche. You can go Reinforcement. If you're going to have him as a high safety in coverage, we want to go back to Universal Coverage. Same benefits that we saw with with Deion Sanders. DeMarcus Ware might be the most overpowered card out of all of these 95 overalls, but it is going to be very expensive AP-wise to do this. Also, one thing to note, he does have multiple team chemistries. If you equip this chemistry, he's not going to play very good. If you equip this chemistry, he'll be really, really good. So just keep that in mind if you're selecting this card. For him, if you want to spend the 4 AP, listen, Unstoppable Force, it's going to be turned on the entire game. It's an ability in this situation, so you won't see it light up. You also won't see it take up any of your X Factor slots. But for 4 AP, it is also very expensive, but at the end of the day, this is going to be your best pass rush ability in the game. If you don't want to spend the 4 AP, definitely recommend double or nothing. In the tier 3 bucket, even though DeMarcus Ware is a pass rusher and you should pretty much never have him in coverage, make sure you do equip Lurker for 0 AP just because it's an ability that he gets, and he does meet the threshold. Unfortunately, his catching is not high enough to equip Tip Drill. Otherwise, that would be a really good usage of this bucket. Same thing with Pick Artist. They are 0 AP abilities that he has in this tier 3 bucket, but because of his thresholds or his accuracy or his jumping attributes, he can, or his catching attributes, I'm sorry, he can't get those. But with all that being said, make sure you do equip Lurker just in case. And then as far as his X Factor goes, this is the route that I would go. I would spend the 1 AP that we talked about over there on double or nothing in the X Factor slot. I would actually go with Unstoppable Force. If you want to spend the 4 AP for it, you're going to have it for all of the game versus the majority of the game. But if you can't afford that AP or you're trying to spread it across all of your defense, which you probably are, double or nothing for 1, Unstoppable Force as the X Factor, and Lurker for that free 0 AP ability. With wide receivers, to me, they don't really need abilities or X Factors to flourish for the most part. So Reggie Wayne's going to be a quick, easy one to go over here. His discounted buckets, they don't really give him too much. I would just go mid-in elite. I think it's more valuable for 0 AP than red zone threat, and I would definitely not recommend spending the 2 AP on rack him up. I also wouldn't prioritize this as an X Factor slot, but last year, if you go into his X Factors, yak him up was really, really good. It's almost like tank, but after the catch for wide receivers there, you're not always going to break a tackle, but if it's a single tackle, a single tackler, they're probably going to break it. So if you do have that X Factor slot open, I'd go the mid-in elite for the 0, and then yak him up for 0 as well, taking up one of your 3 X Factors. Out of all of these cards, Larry Little at right guard is the most boring position, but probably the sneakiest best card that you can have, and it's all because one ability that we used a lot last year and a big fan of, and it is back. So with this card, because he's an offensive lineman, he doesn't have X Factors. Instead, you're going to get All Day, which is really good for pass protection. You're going to get that baked on and activated for 0 AP for the entire game. This will go up to 1 AP on February 13th once the promo is officially over. In his discounted buckets here, you probably want to go spend the 0 AP, or not spend, but you probably want to go activate 0 AP identifier if you're not using that. But if you have 1 AP free, you want to take it back here to the tier 3 bucket and all the way down to the bottom middle. And here is the best ability a lot of people aren't going to tell you about, Omniscient. And I probably butchered the way you pronounce it because I used to call it Omniscient. Don't judge me for that. This ability is really good because it's 2 abilities rolled in 1. Number 1, it's going to be Identifier, and yes, you do have Identifier for free in the tier 5 bucket for 0 AP, but number 2, and this is a game where people blitz a lot on 3rd and 4th downs, the most important downs of the game, you can actually see who's going to be blitzing you, so it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to read a defense and pick up first downs on 3rd and 4th down. So to me, this is 100% worth the 1 AP. Jamal Lewis might be the most disappointing card that came out. Now, we saw the reveals, or I'm sorry, the leaks before the reveals, and I don't know about you guys, I'm just kind of tired of using the same running back, and I was like, okay, we got a brand new one on the way with Jamal Lewis. Well, he's at 95 speed, which we've had 95 speed running backs for far too long now, like Sean Alexander's out there, and don't get me wrong, this is not a bad card. I was just expecting and hoping for a little bit more. So when it comes to his discounted buckets, you're going to get Energizer, which isn't bad if you like to spin and juke a lot, but the only problem is, with this card, he is a power back. He does have the 94 juke move, but only 84 spin, and I feel like spin is way better this year compared to juke. So Energizer, even though you can get it for free, it's probably not ideal here. If you do like to pass the ball a lot and you're not using Master Tactician or Hot Route Master, you can use it on Running Back Apprentice. You're mostly going to get the Texas route, the table route, the wheel route for your running back, which is huge. And then we have Wrecking Ball. So if you do truck a lot, it's 2 AP, it's pretty expensive. And if you don't play on conservative, this might be worth it to you if you're a heavy runner. But all in all, I'm just not a fan of all of his discounted buckets. So what I would do with this card if I were to use it is either go Energizer or Running Back Apprentice, again, based off of if you have Hot Route Master or Master Tactician or not. For the 0 AP, I would go to the tier 3 bucket, and if you do have the 1 AP free, I would go Human Joystick. It's going to give you a little bit more control on your running back. It also will allow you to play on conservative, so you don't have to worry about fumbling. You're not going to be able to juke and spin past people, but as we said, he doesn't have a good spin move, and juke isn't really that overpowered this year, but it'll give you more control on your running back. And what I would recommend is Tank. Now again, it's not going to be active the entire game, but it should be active for the majority of the game. And Tank has an ability, we've seen it a lot in Zero Chill, it's on David Montgomery, it's on Sean Alexander right now as a 2 AP ability. To have this on for a good portion of the game, people love to go for hit sticks. This card is going to bounce off of those, and you got a little more control with the Human Joystick as well. Quarterback is probably the only position on offense that I would recommend spending the majority of your AP on. So if you want to do it with this Steve Young, you certainly can. Now, he is a left-handed quarterback. I know a lot of you don't like using lefties, and it's hard to roll out in certain situations with a left-handed quarterback, but this card does have some pretty good discounted abilities. So if you like to run a lot with your quarterback, you can get Truz for 2 AP. This essentially prevents him from fumbling a lot if you do want to run, but it's a little bit costly AP-wise. Hot Route Master for 1 AP, you're just not going to see a lot of quarterbacks right now get discounted for that cheap, so that's really, really good. But what I would probably go with here is Set Feet Lead, which is going to give you better velocity on your throws. You can't be on the run. The feet do have to be set. It's literally set in the name. But for 3 AP right now, that's a pretty good price AP-wise to spend. Now, me personally, I know it's going to be a lot of AP here, but what I would do is go Set Feet Lead for 3, and I would go back 1 bucket, and I would also activate Master Tactician for 4. That is going to be 7 of your 9 AP on offense, but with that 7 AP, not only are you going to get Set Feet Lead, which is one of the best throwing abilities in the entire game, you're going to get the extra hot routes with Hot Route Master built into Master Tactician. You're going to be able to make those hot routes faster because Conductor is built into Master Tactician and Playmaker. And if you watched the MCS playoffs yesterday, you saw what John Beast was doing with the Playmaker ability. It allows you to kind of send one of your receivers in a direction if the play breaks down, or just quickly to break up a zone defense or what have it. So 7 AP is a lot, but you get a lot there for the 7 AP. And then if we go to the X Factor slot, this is probably where I would utilize Truz, which again, it's not going to be on the entire game, but when it is lit up, you know that because you're going to see it in game, and that will allow you to scramble freely and not have to worry about fumbling. So that's going to be all of the 95 overall champions. We are going to go over the 4 LTDs, which work a little bit different, but just to recap here, if you couldn't figure it out, Ray Nitschke, Deion Sanders, Larry Little, DeMarcus Ware, and John Lynch are probably my favorite cards out of all of them. Steve Young is mostly built on preference and what you like out of a quarterback. Jamal Lewis and Reggie Wayne, a little bit disappointing, but with the abilities and X factors that we went over, they can still be utilized very well. Now, when it comes to the LTDs, I mean, all of these cards are like 3+ million coins for the most part, so I probably won't even pick any of these up. I want to save my coins for next week because the Eagles are going to be getting a bunch of cards. But the way these LTDs work, instead of like a 0 AP bucket, you're going to have to spend 5 training, so you don't have to put any other cards into the upgrade path, but spending that 5 training is going to give them some boosted attributes. For example, Ronnie Lott will get +1 speed, change of direction, and hit power. And you're going to get just a ton of discounted abilities all in these buckets, along with the X factors that we talked about. So for Ronnie Lott, I'm just going to go straight up universal coverage for the 0 AP. And then after that, because he doesn't get that individual bucket like we saw on John Lynch, I'm just going to go pick artist for the 0 AP. And just like we saw it on the defensive backs for the non-LTDs, you are going to get pick artist for 0 AP. So pretty simple for Ronnie Lott. Universal coverage is the X factor. Pick artist is the ability. You're spending 0 AP and you're getting some really, really good combinations of abilities and X factors on the card. When it comes to Mean Joe Green, I mean, he's going to be right in the middle of that defensive line. Really good attributes for him, just like we talked about with DeMarcus Ware. I'm just going to go Unstoppable Force right here. And if you can afford both of the cards and you got Unstoppable Force as 2 of your 3 X factors on DeMarcus Ware and Mean Joe Green, you got a pretty crazy pass rush set up. And really, that's all you need. If you want to spend anything ability ability-wise. At the defensive tackle position, double or nothing for the 1 AP is always good. In my preference, because I run a lot of 3 down linemen defense, I'm in dime 1-4 all the time, I would recommend inside stuff for 1 AP. And you can go through and kind of look at these all through yourself. You have access to a ton of different abilities in these discounted buckets, all for 1 AP, but for my money, I'm going either double or nothing, Unstoppable Force, or inside stuff, Unstoppable Force, for the Mean Joe Green. Vanguard is something that we're probably just going to have to get ready to deal with from now until potentially the end of the year, so beware of this one, because Vanguard in a running scheme, and there's some pass plays or screen plays that will probably utilize this really, really well, is going to be a headache. And if you're going to use this Rob Gronkowski card and all whatever it costs, probably 3 million coins at this point, Vanguard is going to be the move if you like to run the ball occasionally, or a lot, of course. If you don't run barely at all, you can always go with Yak 'em Up, as we talked about it on the Reggie Wayne card. You're going to break a lot of tackles after the first catch, and Gronk being a big tight end receiving threat there, that's going to be ideal. As far as like the discounted abilities on this card, I just don't think there's anything needed from a receiving standpoint. But again, if you want to just go crazy scummy and go Vanguard, you can also spend the 1 AP for honorary lineman to make him that much more of a blocking beast, and he's still going to be a receiving threat just off the attributes alone. The final LTD, which appears to be the cheapest here, is going to be Cooper Kupp. And again, we talked about it with Reggie Wayne. I don't really think you need too much when it comes to wide receivers at this point, but the 2 options you have, and I kind of failed to mention it with Reggie Wayne, you can always go double me, which is going to give you some really good high catch options or potential in one-on-one coverage, and Cooper Kupp does have pretty good height to him, so if you want to go that way, you can. Outside of that, I would go Yak 'em Up just like we did with Reggie Wayne. And then as far as his abilities go, because he doesn't have any specific 0 AP abilities available here, there's not really anything I would recommend spending 1 AP on. If he would have got some type of discount on Route Technician, I would have said go for that. But as I go through these buckets here, you know, I'm not just seeing anything. And I'm sure that the big reason, or a big reason, why he's the least expensive out of the 4 LTDs is because of that reason. So there you have it. LTD is extremely expensive, but can be OP. But I think for real, the 95 overall champions, a lot of potential if you can add these cards to your squad. And we'll be doing this all over again next week when we get a bunch of 95 overall champions from the Eagles and Chiefs, and we'll probably get a couple more welcome pack players and LTDs representing the 2 Super Bowl teams. Hopefully the video helped you out. You guys let me know what combinations you're using and what players down below in the comment section, and thank you for watching. My name is Popular Stranger. I'm out. Peace.